Hi, I'm Brooke Desmond, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about the game which I've made, which is called Lost in Australia. There's a few components that you need to play Lost in Australia. The first is the game chart, and this is a map of Australia, and it's divided up into all the states and territories, with landing marks on each of the capital cities. When a player starts the game, they start in the ocean, they roll the dice, then they use their marker to navigate their way around the continent of Australia, stopping in all the major cities. After each turn, they pick up a landmark card. For example, the landmark cards included could be the Great Barrier Reef, Uluru, the Three Sisters, the Tanami Desert, the Great Dividing Range, and Kakadu National Park, etc. As players navigate through the game, they collect the different landmark cards and place them on the appropriate state in which they belong with. Now, if a child has trouble identifying which state it belongs to, they can ask one of their friends for help, or they can refer to a fact sheet which has the location of where all these natural landscapes are. The board game Lost in Australia has a target group of Year 3s. The students learn more about the concept of places that are both similar and different, and specifically they inquire into the natural characteristics of places at a local, regional and national scale. Using the main game board and the state and territory placemat, the players become more familiar with the locations of the Australian states, territories and capital cities. Through the challenge of picking up the landmark cards and determining which state or territory they belong to, the students begin to develop a greater knowledge of the major natural features of Australia, including rivers, deserts, rainforests, the Great Dividing Range and the Great Barrier Reef. I chose this particular area of geography because I personally love travelling around Australia, and I think that the natural features and landscapes of Australia are so interesting. I felt that allowing students to explore in their own backyard would keep them interested in the curriculum. This board game resource is beneficial as it is a fun way to learn about places in Australia and gives you a sense of travelling around the continent on your own private jet. The kids get to communicate with each other about different places and locations and may use prior knowledge and experiences to contribute to their learning. Some of the names of places may be hard for some children to pronounce, especially if they have not been there before or heard the name of that place. This could be a limiting, challenging part of the game, and so some prior discussions of these places and their names may be helpful in familiarising the children before gameplay. This would be a particularly good resource to use early on in introducing the curriculum. It would provide excitement and enthusiasm about places and names that may sometimes be difficult to remember. When the students are engaged in this fun activity, they will remember interesting facts that they have learned along the way. The Lost in Australia board game is versatile and can be easily adapted to learners at different learning levels. To adapt for lower ability students who may have literacy issues, simply remove some of the more difficult to read landmark cards, or even have them start by racing each other around the capital cities without using any cards at all. For higher ability students, the game can be adapted by having them fill up their entire state and territory placemat before making it back to the finish. When we tested the game out, we had students from Year 2 right up to Year 8 playing. The older kids found the game very engaging and challenging without the need to modify the standard playing rules. And although they became familiar with the locations a lot quicker, they still enjoyed and were challenged playing the game. The younger players need a little modification for their gameplay, and so we removed the harder landmark cards and only played with the cards they were familiar with. In going forward with the younger students, you could add extra cards as they became more familiar with them. In testing the game, I had the students read the instructions and begin gameplay on their own. This was done to check if the instructions were clear enough. I found that the students were able to play very easily on their own. I also observed that both during and after the game they were discussing the new things they learned, which I took as a means of self-assessment. The only edits we found were necessary were making up some alternative gameplays to change things up every now and then.
Pinnacles. I think that's in WA. You're sure?
Yeah.
The concept of the game is to learn about the natural features within Australia. The concept of the game is to identify Australia's major natural features, which may include rivers, deserts, the rainforests, the Great Dividing Range and the Great Barrier Reef. And these are all found on the landmark cards which are part of the game. The players in the game will learn about the different landscapes and whereabouts they are located.